The alien jungle breathed like a living thing. Massive black-leafed trees rose into a sky stained green by distant stars, their roots twisting through glowing mist that crawled across the ground. Every sound carried too far in this place. The snap of a branch, the whisper of movement, the quickened breath of prey. High above the forest floor, moving with effortless grace, the huntress followed the trail she had chosen. To her, this was not a battlefield, it was a game. She belonged to a species that had hunted across 100 worlds. Her armor was light, flexible, grown rather than built, and it shifted with her muscles as she moved from branch to branch. Her eyes could see heat, motion, and fear itself. That was how she found the human. A thin, fragile shape cutting through the undergrowth below, heart racing, lungs burning, so small. So slow, she clicked her tongue in amusement. Humanity had always been disappointing. The human ran hard, pushing through vines and wet soil, boots slipping in the mud. He did not carry heavy armor or alien weapons, only a worn jacket and a pack pressed tight against his back. Every few steps he stumbled, catching himself just in time to keep moving. To the huntress, it was almost pitiful. Humans tired quickly. Humans panicked. Humans broke. This one would be no different. She dropped from the trees and landed silently behind him, claws barely disturbing the soil. She allowed him to see her shadow stretch across the ground. Let him know he was not alone. His breathing hitched, and he ran faster, crashing through the brush with careless desperation. The huntress laughed, a low sound that echoed between the trees. Fear tasted sweet. This was why she loved the chase. She did not strike, not yet. There was no joy in a quick kill. The elders had taught her that prey should understand its place before it died. She followed at a measured pace, never fully revealing herself, always close enough for him to feel her presence. His heart rate spiked again. His fear grew stronger, perfect. The jungle fought the human at every step. Thorned vines tore at his clothes. Insects swarmed, biting exposed skin. The ground dipped suddenly, forcing him to slow, to choose his footing. Still, he did not scream. He did not beg. That was unusual. Most humans begged by now. The huntress narrowed her eyes, studying him more carefully. There was panic in his movement, yes, but beneath it, something else. Focus. Purpose. She leapt ahead and landed in his path, fully visible now. Tall, powerful, her form framed by the glowing mist. Her mandibles curled into what humans would recognize as a smile. The human skidded to a halt, chest heaving, eyes wide. For a heartbeat, the world seemed to hold its breath. Run while you can, human, she said, her voice smooth and mocking, translated cleanly by the device at her throat. I enjoy watching you try. She expected him to freeze. She expected tears, anger, defiance, something. Instead, he stared at her for a second longer than necessary. His eyes flicked to the trees, to the ground, to her position, measuring. Then he turned and ran again. The huntress laughed louder this time, delighted. He had spirit, she would give him that. It would make the ending sweeter. She gave chase, accelerating easily, letting him think he might gain distance before closing it again. She wanted him exhausted, empty, broken by hope before she ended it. As they moved deeper into the jungle, the terrain subtly changed. The trees grew closer together, the mist thickened. Strange metallic shapes half buried in the soil caught the huntress's attention for a moment, but she dismissed them as wreckage from some ancient conflict. The galaxy was full of forgotten debris. It meant nothing. The human slowed, just slightly. His breathing changed. Not weak or controlled. That was wrong. He should have been near collapse by now. The huntress felt a faint ripple of irritation. She pushed it aside. No prey escaped her. He glanced over his shoulder then, and for the first time, their eyes met while both were in motion. In that brief moment, the huntress felt something unexpected. Not fear, Not challenge, calm, the humans. Lips curved into the faintest smile before he vanished into the mist ahead. The huntress felt a strange chill creep along her spine. She told herself it was nothing. The jungle was playing tricks. The hunt was still hers. After all, he was only human, and humans always ran. The jungle did not grow quieter as the chase continued. Instead, the sounds became sharper, more focused, as if the world itself was watching. The huntress moved with practiced ease, stepping over roots and slipping between trees without slowing. Her confidence remained strong, yet her attention narrowed fully on the human ahead. He was still running, yet something about his pace had changed. It was no longer wild or desperate. His steps were placed with care, his turns taken just a little too cleanly for a creature on the edge of exhaustion. She allowed herself to close the distance again, letting her presence press against him like a shadow. She wanted him to feel it, to know that escape was impossible. The heat of his body glowed in her vision, but it did not flare wildly as she expected. His breathing remained steady, controlled. That was wrong. Humans burned themselves out quickly under fear and stress. This one did not. He burst into a narrow stretch of jungle where the trees pressed in tightly and the ground dipped unevenly. The huntress followed, confident that the terrain would slow him further. She leapt from above, landing just behind him, close enough that her claws brushed the air near his shoulder. He stumbled forward, catching himself on a tree trunk, then kept moving. Without looking back, no scream, no curse, no plea. Annoyance crept into her thoughts. She stepped beside him for a heartbeat, allowing him to see her fully again. Her armor reflected faint green light. Her weapons rested ready at her sides. She expected his fear to spike. Instead, he slowed just enough to speak without turning his head. "You are very sure of this hunt," he said, his voice calm, almost conversational. The words hit harder than any weapon. The huntress frowned slightly, more than the meaning. It was the tone that unsettled her. There was no panic in it, no strain. He sounded like someone making an observation, not a victim facing death. She answered with a sharp laugh, masking the sudden tension in her chest. Confidence had always broken. "Humans faster than force. I have ended your kind on many worlds," she replied. "You all run the same." He did not argue. He did not shout back. He only nodded once, as if agreeing with her. Then he turned sharply and vanished into a dense curtain of hanging vines. The huntress followed, instantly slicing through the growth without hesitation. She emerged on the other side, expecting to strike his back. The space beyond was empty. She stopped moving for the first time since the chase began. Her eyes scanned the area rapidly. Heat signatures flickered everywhere, small animals, insects, plant life. Yet the human was gone. The ground showed signs of passage, but they were faint, confused, as if several paths overlapped each other. That made no sense. There had only been one runner. A faint sound echoed to her left. She spun, reacting on instinct. Her weapon came up ready to fire, but nothing emerged. Only the slow drifting mist and the towering trees. She exhaled sharply, irritated at herself for pausing. Prey could not disappear. Humans were not capable of such tricks. Then she noticed the marks on the ground. Deep, narrow impressions arranged in an unnatural pattern. They were not footprints. They were placements, deliberate and spaced, the kind left by someone who knew exactly where they were stepping. Her thoughts shifted uneasily. She moved forward slower, now senses fully engaged. She remembered fragments of old campaign briefings, stories told by veterans who had faced humans in extended conflicts. They spoke of traps, of patience, of battles that did not begin with gunfire, but with movement and timing. She had dismissed those stories as exaggeration. The jungle ahead felt different, heavier. The air carried a faint metallic scent. She could not place. She heard his voice again, not close, but not far either. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You should not have chased me," he said. She snapped her head toward the sound, searching for him, but finding only shadows. Anger flared within her, replacing uncertainty. No prey spoke like this. No prey dictated the flow of a hunt. She bared her teeth and advanced. "Show yourself human," she demanded. There was a pause long enough for her irritation to sharpen. Then his reply came softer, almost thoughtful. "I am showing you," he said. "You just do not know what to look for yet." The huntress tightened her grip on her weapon. Her surroundings no longer felt like a hunting ground. They felt arranged as if every tree, every slope, every patch of mist had been placed with intention. She moved again, but this time she checked each step, tested the ground before trusting it. For the first time in her long hunting career, the thrill of pursuit was gone. In its place, a thin, unfamiliar sensation began to take root: uncertainty. The huntress stood still longer than she intended, letting the jungle settle around her. The mist drifted slowly, brushing against her armor, and the distant calls of unseen creatures echoed through the trees. She had never paused like this during a hunt before. Motion had always been her advantage, speed her weapon. Now stillness pressed against her senses and made her aware of every small sound, including her own breathing, which she forced to remain calm. She moved again, but not with the same confidence. Her steps became measured, her path less direct. She tested the ground before placing her weight, feeling for a hidden weakness. The human had changed the flow of the hunt, and she did not like it. The prey was supposed to react, not control. The thought irritated her, yet she could not dismiss it. The jungle opened slightly into a wide clearing, broken by fallen stone structures, half swallowed by roots and moss. The ruins were ancient, their surfaces scarred by time and war. The huntress slowed further, studying the place. Her instincts whispered caution. This area was too open, too quiet. The human had led her here on purpose. She circled the edge of the clearing, scanning for heat, movement, distortion in the air, anything that betrayed his position. Nothing appeared, yet the feeling of being watched grew stronger, pressing against the back of her mind. She adjusted her vision modes, cycling through ranges, until a faint pattern emerged near the center of the ruins. A disturbance in temperature, barely noticeable but deliberate. "You are adapting slowly," came the human voice, calm and distant. The huntress spun, her weapon raised. Anger flared sharp and hot. She fired a short burst toward the sound. The blast tore through stone and vegetation, sending fragments into the air. But when the dust settled, there was no body, no blood, only silence. "Your aim is good," he continued from another direction, "but you rely too much on it." Her mandibles tightened. She had never been spoken to like this by prey. Each word felt like a challenge, not shouted but placed carefully. She moved toward the center of the ruins, eyes never resting on one spot for long. She noticed more details now: thin lines cut into stone panels, disturbed soil patterns, broken foliage that formed subtle arrows leading inward. This was no escape route. This was a path. Her pace slowed again despite her frustration. The confidence she once carried had begun to crack, replaced by calculation. She remembered more of those old human stories, not of strength, but of planning, of environments turned into weapons. Humans were not the fastest or strongest, but they learned every weakness, including their enemies' expectations. The ground beneath her shifted without warning. Not enough to drop her, but enough to force her to adjust. She leapt back instinctively, landing on a raised slab, heart rate spiking for the first time. Her sensors reported a brief energy spike, then nothing. Whatever had triggered was gone, spent or dormant. She looked down and saw it clearly now, a pressure mechanism, crude yet effective, hidden under soil and leaves, designed to react to weight and movement. It was not meant to kill, it was meant to teach. She hissed softly in irritation, and something else she refused to name. Respect began to creep in, unwelcome and sharp. This human had prepared the field long before she ever saw him. He had not been running blindly. He had been guiding her, shaping the hunt from the first step. "You are learning," he said, his voice closer now, but still unseen. "Most hunters never do." She turned slowly, trying to triangulate the sound. The ruins created echoes, distortions. He was using the environment against her again. She took a steady breath and spoke with forced calm. "You think this changes the outcome, human?" A pause followed, then a quiet response. "No," he said, "it changes the experience." The words lingered longer than she expected. She advanced again, careful, deliberate, every muscle tense, her senses strained to track even the smallest irregularity. A faint flicker caught her attention to her right. She lunged, firing as she moved. The shot struck a pillar, shattering stone and revealing a shadowed passage behind it. For a brief moment, she saw him clearly, standing still, weapon lowered, watching her with an expression that was neither fear nor anger. It was focus. Then he stepped back into darkness and vanished again. She pursued instantly, but the passage narrowed, forcing her to slow. The walls closed in, coated with old metal and stone. The air grew cooler, the metallic scent stronger. She realized then that this place was not just ancient ruins. It was a battlefield from a forgotten human war. Symbols etched into the walls confirmed it. Warnings, markers, directions. Humans had fought and died here. They had learned here. The huntress felt the weight of that realization settle heavy in her chest. She was no longer chasing a lone survivor. She was walking through the memory of a species that refused to be erased, and somewhere ahead the human waited, not to escape, but to finish teaching her what it meant to hunt a human. The corridor opened suddenly into a broken chamber where the ceiling had collapsed long ago. Light from the alien sky filtered through twisted metal and stone, casting long, uneven shadows across the floor. The huntress stepped inside slowly, every sense alert. The air was thick with the smell of rust and old energy. This place carried history, and not the kind that faded quietly. She scanned the chamber and finally saw him. The human stood near the far side, partially illuminated by the falling light. His weapon was visible now, held low and steady, not aimed at her. His posture was relaxed, almost casual, as if he had been waiting for her arrival rather than fleeing from it. "So you stopped running," she said, her voice sharp, cutting through the stillness. He did not answer immediately. Instead, he took one step back and pressed his foot against the floor. There was a soft click, barely audible. Then he looked up and met her gaze. "I never ran," he said. "I repositioned." The world exploded into motion. The ground beneath the huntress surged upward, throwing her off balance. She leapt instinctively, but the blast of force twisted her midder, slamming her hard against a stone wall. Armor absorbed most of the impact, but pain flared through her side. She hit the ground and rolled, coming up on one knee. Weapon raised, smoke and dust filled the chamber, obscuring everything. Sensors struggled to cut through the interference for the first time in many cycles. Her heart hammered violently, not from exertion, but from shock. The human had not attacked directly. He had controlled space-timing and expectation. She fired blindly toward his last position. The blast scorched stone and metal, but met no resistance. The smoke began to thin, and she saw him again, closer now, moving with deliberate calm. Each step placed exactly where it needed to be. "You could have killed me," she snapped, anger masking the tightness in her chest. He stopped a short distance away, far enough to remain safe, close enough for his words to carry clearly. "That was never the point," he said. He moved faster, than not charging, but shifting to the side. His weapon discharged once. A sharp, controlled sound cut through the chamber. The shot struck her shoulder joint, where armor plates overlapped. Pain unlike anything she had felt before surged through her arm. Her weapon slipped from her grasp and clattered across the floor. She snarled and lunged, relying on strength and instinct. Claws slashed through air, missing him by a narrow margin. He ducked, rolled, and came up behind a broken column, breathing steady, eyes locked on her. "You aim to kill predators," he continued calmly. "You hunt to dominate humans, fight to survive." The words burned deeper than the wound. She pivoted, trying to track him, but her injured arm responded slower than she expected. Her body had never betrayed her like this before. She felt vulnerable, and that realization struck harder than pain. She backed away toward the center of the chamber, forcing distance. Her free hand reached for a secondary blade, activating it with a flick of her wrist. The blade hummed alive, reflecting the fractured light above. "You bleed like the rest," she said, trying to reclaim control. He nodded, once acknowledging the truth. "So do you." She attacked again, this time with precision, cutting off angles, forcing him toward debris. Her experience showed in every movement, yet something fundamental had shifted. The human did not retreat in panic. He anticipated, adapted, responded. He moved like someone who had already imagined this fight many times. He slid across the floor and vanished behind a fallen beam. She advanced cautiously, senses stretched thin. The silence pressed heavy. She took one more step. Pain ripped through her leg as something snapped closed around it. Metal teeth bit into armor and flesh, dragging her downward. She screamed in fury and surprise, trying to tear free. The trap held fast, designed to restrain, not kill. The human emerged into view, standing just beyond her reach. His expression remained unchanged, focused, almost solemn. He aimed his weapon, but did not fire. "This is where you decide," he said. She glared at him, chest heaving, arm trembling, leg trapped, blood seeping into the dirt. No prey had ever stood over her like this. No hunt had ever turned so completely. "Decide what?" she hissed. "What?" "You are," he replied, "a hunter who learns or a monster who dies here." The chamber seemed to close in around them. The huntress felt the weight of her choices press against her pride, her fear, her anger. She realized with chilling clarity that the human still controlled the outcome. He always had. And for the first time since the chase began, the hunt was truly over. Whether she survived it was now her decision. The trap released with a sharp mechanical sound, and the pressure on her leg vanished. The huntress collapsed forward, catching herself on one arm. Breathing hard, pain radiated through her body, yet she remained alive. She looked up, expecting the human to finish it, but he had already stepped back, creating distance once more. His weapon remained lowered. "But ready, stand when you can," he said calmly. "This lesson is not over." The words struck deeper than any threat. He had freed her deliberately, not out of weakness but control. She pushed herself upright, ignoring the pain and the humiliation burning beneath it. Her pride screamed at her to attack, yet another part of her mind, older and sharper, warned her that rushing now would mean death. Chamber felt smaller than before. The shadows seemed closer, the silence heavier. She retrieved her fallen weapon, slowly, never taking her eyes off him. He allowed it, watching without interference. That alone unsettled her more than violence ever could. "You spare me," she said slowly. Why? He tilted his head slightly, as if considering how to explain something simple. "Because fear teaches faster than death." The answer lingered between them. The huntress tested her leg weight carefully. It held, though. Pain pulsed with every movement. She adjusted her stance and studied him again, truly studied him, not as prey, but as an opponent. She saw exhaustion lines at the edges of his eyes, dirt smeared across his face, small cuts bleeding beneath his clothing. He was not invincible, he was human, yet he stood without hesitation. They moved again, not charging, not retreating, but circling. The broken chamber became a measured arena. Every step was cautious, every angle tested. She tried to predict his next move. But his rhythm was unfamiliar. He was not reacting to her. He was waiting for her to commit. She attacked with speed and skill, closing the distance in a blur. Her blade cut through air, forcing him back. He blocked, redirected, and slipped aside, using the environment rather than strength. Stone fragments shattered underfoot as they moved. His breathing stayed even, hers did not. "You were taught to dominate," he said between movements. "We were taught to adapt." She struck again, faster this time, catching his arm, grazing flesh. Blood appeared bright against dark fabric. She felt a surge of satisfaction, short-lived, as he used the momentum to twist free and reposition behind cover. "That is what makes you dangerous," she snapped. He smiled faintly, not with pride but understanding. "And that is why you lost control." The words hit hard because they were true. The huntress realized she had been reacting since the clearing, responding to his choices rather than her own. That had never happened before. Fear began to settle deeper, colder, not panic but awareness. The chamber lights flickered as old systems reacted to movement. Ancient power lines hummed faintly beneath the floor. He stepped toward a control panel, half buried in debris, and brushed dust away, revealing faded human markings, warnings, instructions, numbers. "This place was built to break invaders," he said softly. "We learned that the hard way." She lunged, trying to stop him, but the floor shifted again, not violently, but deliberately, forcing her to adjust. He pressed something, and the chamber changed. Panels slid, walls narrowed, pathways opened and closed. The ruins came alive, responding to human command. The huntress staggered back, surrounded by moving stone and metal. She realized The truth with chilling clarity. This was not just a battlefield, it was a lesson preserved in architecture. A memory of human resistance turned into a living weapon. You planned this long before. I arrived, she said, her voice low. He nodded. I hoped you would leave. She laughed bitterly. I never run. For the first time his expression hardened. Neither do we. The walls closed further, separating them. Briefly her vision lost him, and panic surged before she forced it down. She moved through the shifting pathways, using instinct and experience to stay ahead of crushing stone. When she emerged into another open section, he was already there waiting. You mocked me at the start, he said. Run while you can, human. Her mandibles twitched, remembering her words. The laughter, the certainty. That was when the hunt ended, he continued. You just did not know it yet. She felt something unfamiliar settle in her chest, not defeat, but understanding. Humans did not hunt for glory. They hunted to survive, and they made survival terrifying for anyone who threatened it. The chamber stilled at his command. The path behind her opened, leading out into the jungle. Beyond it lay escape and shame. The path ahead led deeper into the ruins, and into him, the huntress, stood between them, realizing that fear had finally learned her name. The huntress did not move immediately. The open path behind her glowed faintly with jungle light, while the deeper corridor ahead pulsed with ancient power. She felt the weight of both choices pressing against her instincts. Pride urged her forward. Escape whispered survival. For the first time in her life, she understood why humans hesitated before battle. They calculated consequences, not outcomes. She tightened her grip on her weapon and stepped forward into the ruins. The choice was hers, and she refused to turn away. The human watched without surprise, as if he had already known what she would do. He adjusted his stance, not in preparation to attack, but to receive her. The shifting walls settled, locking them into a long, narrow passage, where movement was limited and distance meant nothing. You want to understand, he said quietly. She did not answer, but her posture did. Her blade lowered slightly, not in surrender, but in focus. The pain in her leg burned, yet she used it, grounding herself, reminding her that this was real. They moved together this time, not as hunter and prey, but as opponents bound by the same space. Every step echoed loudly, the corridor amplified, sound turning breath and movement into signals. Neither rushed, neither wasted energy. She struck first, a clean, efficient attack meant to end it. He countered, redirecting her blade and closing the distance. They clashed, bodies colliding, armor scraping against fabric. Stone walls left no room for error. Every movement mattered. He used leverage instead of strength, twisting her arm, forcing her to drop the blade. She responded with her free hand, driving him back into the wall. The impact knocked the breath from him, but he recovered instantly, sliding away before she could press the advantage. You fight like a memory, she growled. He met her gaze, eyes sharp. So do you. They separated briefly, both breathing harder now, sweat mixed with blood on his skin. Her armor showed cracks and scoring from earlier impacts. Neither was untouched. Neither was finished. He stepped back toward a recessed panel in the wall. His hand hovered near it, but did not activate anything. He was giving her a choice again. That realization sparked anger and something close to respect. Say it, she demanded. Say what he asked. Why you do this? He paused, then spoke with the weight of something learned, not taught, because if we do not, the galaxy will never stop testing us. The corridor trembled slightly as ancient systems responded to movement. Power flowed through old circuits, lighting symbols along the walls. She recognized them now, not warnings, but records, names, dates, losses, human losses etched into stone and metal. This is not about you, he continued. This is about what happens when someone decides humans are easy prey. She looked at the symbols and felt something twist inside her. Not fear, not guilt, recognition. Her kind had written similar records on other worlds' victories, hunts, conquests. They had never considered how those records looked to survivors. She attacked again, driven by instinct and understanding. Their clash was faster, now more brutal. She landed a strike against his ribs. He countered with a precise blow that sent pain flaring through her shoulder. They fought without words, without mockery, without illusion. At last they broke apart, both exhausted. The silence returned heavier than before. He leaned against the wall, breathing hard. She stood opposite him, weaponless but unbroken. "You could have killed me earlier," she said again, softer now. He nodded. "And you could have killed me too." They stood in that truth for a long moment. The corridor lights dimmed as if the ruins themselves. "Waited. You were never running," she said finally. "No," he replied, "I was answering you." Her mandibles curled slightly. "Answering what? Your question at the start." She remembered her voice mocking. "Run while you can." Human. The certainty, the amusement. "What was your answer?" she asked. He straightened despite the pain and met her gaze fully. "We do not run," he said. "We make sure no one ever hunts us the same way twice." The words settled, heavy, final, undeniable. She felt the hunt truly end then, not in death, but in understanding. The galaxy feared humans not because of strength, but because of memory. The corridor doors behind him opened slowly, revealing a path deeper into the ruins. And beyond them, a human vessel waiting, powered and ready. "You can leave," he said, "or you can stay and learn." She looked at the path, then at him. The choice echoed again, but this time it was different. For the first time, the huntress felt something close to awe. Humanity had turned survival into strategy, and strategy into terror, and she understood at last why no one laughed at humans twice. The ruins were quiet now, not silent, but settled, as if the structure itself had reached the end of a long-held breath. Light from the human vessel spilled into the corridor, soft and steady. The huntress stood still, feeling the weight of the moment press against her senses. This was not a battlefield anymore, it was a threshold. The human turned away first, walking toward the open path without urgency, without fear. He trusted the choice she would make. That trust felt heavier than chains. She followed slowly, every step deliberate. Pain still pulsed through her body, yet her mind felt sharper than it ever had. They emerged into a wide chamber where the ship waited, resting on scorched stone. Old human symbols glowed faintly across its hull. Marks of journeys survived and wars endured. This vessel was not beautiful, it was practical, scarred, reinforced, built to last. "This is where it ends," she said. He shook his head gently. "This is where it proves something." She watched him activate the ship systems. Lights brightened, engines hummed alive. The sound was calm, controlled, ready. She realized then that he had never doubted this ending. He had never needed to win the fight. He only needed to finish the lesson. "You let me live," she said. Again, he faced her fully now, eyes steady, voice firm. "I let you remember." The words struck deeper than any wound. She looked down at her hands, at the weapons she had trusted for cycles. They felt smaller now, not weaker, but incomplete. She understood something she had never been taught. Hunters ended lives. Humans changed futures beyond. The chamber, the jungle waited, vast and dark. The same jungle where the hunt had begun. She imagined returning to her people, carrying this story. The laughter would come first, then the silence, then the fear. They would listen because hunters respected survival above all else. "What will you tell them?" he asked. She lifted her head slowly. "I will tell them not to hunt humans." He nodded once. "That is enough." The ship doors began to close, sealing with a heavy final sound. The engines grew louder, vibrations rolling through the ruins. Dust lifted from the floor as ancient stone acknowledged the departure of its last lesson. She took a step back, watching the vessel rise, not fleeing, not chasing, simply leaving. The hunt was over, and it would never begin again. Not like this. As the ship vanished into the alien sky, the huntress stood alone among ruins, built by human hands and human memory. She felt smaller, yet stronger at the same time. Something inside her had shifted permanently. Humans did not roar. They did not boast. They did not chase glory. They remembered. They adapted. They waited. And when the galaxy tested them, they answered in ways no one forgot. The jungle resumed its sound slowly, cautiously. Life continued as it always did. But the meaning of the hunt had changed forever. Far above, stars burned quietly, unaware that one truth had just grown sharper across the galaxy. Humans were not prey. They were the reason the hunt ended.